Welcome to Time Travel, unfolding stories that shaped our world. The History of Australia. Episode 2, Terra Australis, When the World Discovered a New Land. For tens of thousands of years, the great southern continent was known only to the people who called it home. To the rest of the world, it was a mystery, a blank space at the edge of old maps, marked only by imagination and myth. They called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land, a place of wonder, danger, and endless speculation. Welcome to Time Travel, the history of Australia, unfolding stories that shaped our world. In this episode, we explore how distant nations began to dream of the South, how explorers set sail in search of wealth and glory, and how the world's first encounters with this vast island would change history forever. Part 1. The Myth of Terra Australis. For centuries, ancient scholars believed that a great continent must exist in the southern hemisphere to balance the lands of the north. The Greeks imagined it. The Romans mapped it. And during the Age of Discovery, the idea became an obsession. European powers like Portugal, Spain, and the Netherlands sent ships into the unknown. Their maps grew, their knowledge expanded, and their curiosity turned southward toward the empty spaces at the edge of the world. But what they were searching for was not a myth. It was a land already inhabited by hundreds of nations, people who had lived there for more than 65,000 years. The world was about to rediscover a continent that had never been lost. Part 2. Early Voyages to the Great Southland. In the early 1600s, the first recorded European contact with Australia began. Dutch explorers sailing for the powerful Dutch East India Company reached the western coast. In 1606, Willem Janszoon landed on the Cape York Peninsula aboard the Duifken, becoming the first known European to set foot on the Australian continent. He mapped part of the coastline, but what he found was not the rich land of legend. He encountered difficult terrain, unfamiliar climates, and resistance from local people. The voyage ended in failure, and he returned home convinced the land was inhospitable. Still, curiosity grew. Other Dutch explorers followed Dirk Hartog, Abel Tasman, and Jan Carstens. They mapped the western and northern shores, naming the land New Holland. Tasman's journeys even brought him to the island now known as Tasmania, and to the distant shores of New Zealand. These voyages proved that Terra Australis was real, but they also revealed its vast emptiness to European eyes. A land of deserts, storms, and unfamiliar people far from the riches of Asia. For the next century, it would remain on the edge of maps, not yet claimed, not yet understood. Part 3. The Age of Empire and the Race for the Pacific. By the 1700s, the world was changing fast. Empires were rising, trade routes expanding, and new scientific thinking was reshaping exploration. Britain, France, and Spain now looked to the Pacific, eager to chart and claim what remained unknown. It was an age of intense rivalry, where every discovery could shift global power. And in 1768, one expedition would change everything. The British Royal Navy sent a young lieutenant named James Cook on a scientific mission aboard the Endeavour. Officially, he was to observe the transit of Venus across the sun. But his secret orders were clear: to search for the southern continent and claim it for Britain if found. Cook's journey was as ambitious as it was dangerous. After completing his astronomical observations in Tahiti, he turned south toward the uncharted seas. For months, the Endeavour battled storms and cold waters, until, on the 19th of April, 1770, Cook sighted the coast of what is now New South Wales. 2 days later, they landed at a place he called Botany Bay. Part 4. Encounter and Observation. The Endeavour's arrival marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, Europeans had reached the eastern coast of Australia. But Cook and his crew were not the first to walk these lands. They were guests in a country already alive with thousands of years of culture and lore. At Botany Bay and along the east coast, they encountered the Gweagal and Darawal peoples. Communication was difficult and misunderstanding was frequent. To the crew, this was a new discovery. To the Aboriginal people, it was an intrusion. Cook recorded their presence carefully. He noted the richness of the land, the beauty of the environment, and the complex social systems of the first Australians. He saw people living with skill, confidence, and purpose. And yet, in his final report, he described the land as uninhabited in the European legal sense. This one phrase would shape centuries of policy and conflict to come. Before returning home, Cook sailed north along the coast, naming bays, islands and capes that still appear on maps today. He claimed the eastern coast for Great Britain and called it New South Wales. Part 5. The World Changes Forever. When Cook returned to England, his discoveries caused a sensation. He had found a bay when Cook returned to England. His discoveries caused a sensation, and the British Empire saw an opportunity. Within a generation, Britain's prisons were overflowing, and its colonies in America had declared independence. A new solution was needed, a faraway land where convicts could be sent to start again. In 1788, less than 2 decades after Cook's voyage, the first fleet set sail from Portsmouth carrying over 1,400 people, including prisoners, marines and settlers. They arrived at Botany Bay, then moved north to establish a settlement at Sydney Cove. The ancient world of the first Australians and the modern world of Europe had now collided. The consequences would reshape both forever. Part 6. Legacy of Discovery. The idea of Terra Australis had finally become reality, but at a great cost. What had once been imagined as an empty southern continent was now the stage for one of the most profound cultural encounters in human history. For the Aboriginal peoples, it was the beginning of immense upheaval, land dispossession, disease and loss. Yet it was also the beginning of resilience, of voices that would continue to speak for country through generations of challenge. For the world, Cook's journey transformed the map forever. Australia, once hidden in myth, was now part of the global story. Closing and call to action. The discovery of Terra Australis was not the end of exploration. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with ambition, tragedy and transformation. The world had found Australia, but it had yet to understand it. Join us in the next episode of Time Travel, The History of Australia, as we follow the birth of a colony and the making of a nation in episode 3, The Penal Colony, Foundations of a New World. Subscribe to Time Travel to continue the journey. And together, let's keep unfolding the stories that shaped our world. Time Travel, unfolding stories that shaped our world.